Hey yo,
Hey yo,
hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo.
yo. Oh, that's what you meant when you wanted to do.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Have We Made It Yet podcast. The podcast where creatives talk about the process of making it. I am one of your co-hosts, the actor Lucas Ng.
And I am the comedian Josh Yang.
Josh, did you like that Queen rendition that we just did?
I did. You gave me the littlest of heads up. It's like, hey, I'm gonna do something, and it's like, just I hope you get it. And I got it as best as I could on very little notice, but
Nice.
I was off key, pretty sure.
Dude, who can be off key when they're singing Queen, man?
Yeah, exactly.
If you've noticed it's a little bit darker on our areas, it's because we're doing this podcast a little bit later in the night. But if not, then you can thank movie magic because artificial lighting is king right now.
Yeah, we look so good. Lucas in his green lighting and me in my leaded, colorless life form.
It matches the tone, though. Matches the tone.
Yeah.
As we start off with every episode, we have the continual, at times, pretty torturous question. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I would agree. I would agree.
Mr. Josh Yang.
Yes.
Have you made it yet?
I have not made it yet. I'm throwing a bunch of stuff out there. I don't think anything's really happened in the last week, other than I've made the decision to go do 2 episodes a week on the Sleep with Josh podcast. So, yeah, if you want to hear me read things in my monotone voice to help you go to sleep twice a week, you're in luck. So that's it. That's the most progress so far. But Lucas, hey, more importantly, sorry, I choked on myself. Have you made it yet?
A full-blown no. But I am getting pretty good at spike ball. I'll say that.
Yes, that's a very popular spike ball.
I am doing more acting classes right now over Zoom again. I think it's really important to keep sharp while you're in a lull because hopefully the storm will come. And it'd be the most shameful of things if you were not ready for the downpour.
Right.
So,
yes.
Gotta do it, man.
Gotta do it.
Gotta do it, man. Dude, our guest today?
Yes.
Shit. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. First off, Josh, we all went to SFU together. Have you met our guest in person?
I'm not too sure.
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
I'm pretty sure we have mutual friends, but can't remember if we ever did meet. But I know of her.
Yes, and that's why just her name alone has like gravitas among like the SFU community, but also just in BC in general, and in I think North America, like Canada, US too. It's a building empire right now.
Ooh.
Yeah. So okay, I met our next guest at a mutual friend's birthday party a few years back now. I remember we were standing outside by the barbecue, and the birthday girl introduced us to. Her name was Vivian Man, or is Vivian Man.
What?
I know.
Just decided to change the first name or whatever.
Exactly. We quickly started talking, and we meandered our conversation to Toronto, as I was then thinking about moving here at that time. She quickly told me about her big love of all things Six God, aka Aubrey, aka Drizzy, aka Drizzy Drake. By the way, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't get to stay at that party for too long, but we've been in contact ever since. We've kept in contact, and we've been in each other's orbits as I've seen her excel and grow into a multi-talented go-getter you see today. Again, her hustle spirit has seen her be a host for public events, a producer, an interviewer, and a journalist. She has previously worked with CTV, City TV, Novus TV, and also Canadian Idol too, which is pretty big names. Currently, she's building her media empire brick by brick by focusing on stories of Asian millennials through editorials, podcasts, and video content. That empire, which we'll go into detail today, is called Cold Tea Collective. She's inspirational, and it's an honor to have her on here. Please give it up for Natasha Jung.
Hey.
What? Oh my gosh. Hey Josh. Hey Lucas.
Hello, hello.
Well, okay, I can verify 100% that is how we met, Lucas. But I can verify probably not a lot of everything else you said. That your introduction was like way too kind. But thank you so much for having me join you guys today. And Josh, like, I can't quite pin it either, just to know if we actually met. But I know your name. I think Cold Tea Collective, we promoted one of your live shows like last year as well.
Yeah, I remember there's the Asian producer Vong show with his rice show.
Yeah.
He did, that was a recording in January this year, and I remember you guys sending out a post there, and that was very nice. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, it's nice to be on a call with you, and thank you so much for, chatting a little bit later. It's just after 8 p.m. Vancouver time, so appreciate the, well, I guess that means it's 11 o'clock your time. Thank you so much.
All good.
All good. Happy to do it.
Miss Natasha Jung, have you made it yet?
I'm going to quote some Drizzy Drake.
Oh, okay, lay it.
I haven't thrown up my awards speech. Oh, so shoot. Sorry. Okay, hold on a sec. Something about, oh my God, I'm so embarrassing. Okay. I haven't thrown out the paper for my Grammy speech because I haven't reached the pinnacles that I plan to reach.
Ooh. That's
and nice. Here's another one for you.
All right.
I'm somewhere between I want it and I got it. So there's another one there too. Yes, I would say no, but I caveat that with, if you asked me maybe 10 years ago, for what I imagined for my life at this age, then I would say yeah.
Okay.
But given my goals that I have now moving forward, just bigger picture dreams, bigger picture plans, no, I'm still working my way there.
Awesome. But Natasha from 10 years ago would say that you've currently made it right now. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, just kind of holistically. Yes! Another one.
Yeah. It's funny because the previous two guests have also said that they have made it too. So it's like we're on a three-peat right now of like people who are happy currently of where they are, because that is actually like pretty healthy in terms of like setting goals for yourself too. It's not only just a constant strive, but also like being happy with your current successes too. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think like, the last few months, especially being in quarantine and such, has really attributed to that as well. It's given me a lot of time like with myself at home, not feeling like the need to show up in certain places or do certain things. It really makes me just like appreciate the time I have at home with my husband and my dog, and just the time I have to focus on my own stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a multi-talented professional dealing with producing, being journalist and interviewer, everything like that. What hobbies or crafts prior to you doing what you're doing now led you into the craft that you want to go into now?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a great question because it's kind of funny, I think, because gosh, like, where do I even start? So you mentioned Canadian Idol, right? In high school, I started this singing competition for high school students in Richmond, BC, which is where I grew up, modeled after Canadian Idol, American Idol, that kind of thing. And with that was kind of really my first foray into like hosting and producing a live event. And this year, if it wasn't such a weird year and everything getting canceled, it would have been our 15th year of the singing competition. But I would say that that's really where that started. I've always been really involved in performing arts, singing and dancing. I say acting with quotation marks because it was high school. I don't think I was actually very good, but I think it was a huge part of me forming, I guess, confidence, but also discipline.
Hmm.
to be able to show up the way I want to show up, like whether it be on stage, on camera, or behind a microphone, what have you. So really, like more than half my life, I feel like I've been kind of working towards that. Um, yeah, and I mean, like right out of high school too, because of my Rich City Idol experience, I had the
Hmm.
opportunity to intern at like MTV Canada before it even moved out to Toronto.
Wow.
Yes, and that was even before I started going to SFU. Because I went to SFU, I transferred in my like third year of studies in university,
Hmm.
and yeah, just kind of like from there, I kind of pivoted a little bit as well, and I got more experience in like marketing communications, and that's what a lot of my professional like 9 to 5 job like career kind of
Hmm.
trajectory has been focused on.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, in the last like in 2016, I kind of went through a bit of a career transition.
Hmm.
In I was working at a corporate marketing job, and it was really unfulfilled. And I have a TEDx talk that goes into more detail about it. But the long story, or pardon me, the short story is that I was very unfulfilled.
Mm.
That led me to not being able to perform at work, and because of that, I was depressed. Like I wasn't doing work that was in line with my values. And even before kind of like shit hit the fan, but when I say shit hit the fan, I mean like I actually lost my job
Oh
because
man.
I wasn't performing. And it was the first time that like anything like that ever happened. Like I'm very used to being like high performing and all that. And I know that it's a lot of it's pretty common for most people our generation and of our demographic, I suppose, in our community and Asian Canadian community specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, even before that happened, I kind of, reminded myself that, hey, like I actually really need to give myself the chance to explore media.
Yeah.
And so when I lost my job, I ended up working in television casually as a producer and host, kind of letting myself live out my teenage dream, if you will.
Yeah.
And during that time also, I called it fun employment. That's when the idea for Quilty Collective came about.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh my god. It really like I had a similar experience too in terms of not finding passion in my current job and then having to either continue on with that kind of misery or
Mm.
make a drastic change and do something that I actually love. And I find that
Yeah.
story really inspiring because it really does take that huge, for lack of a better term and cliche term, a leap of faith because you really don't know what's going to be on the other side until you take that jump. But you know that your
Mhm.
current place is not going to be beneficial for you too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's why I think our generation is connecting through those stories, and I think a
Mm.
lot of the people that we connect with through our platform, through Quilty Collective,
Hmm.
are looking for that kind of inspiration. Also, just to hear from other people in their experiences in terms of transitions in their life, whether it be through their career, personal life, moving to a new city,
Hmm.
as you both have. So yeah, I mean, it's a leap of faith, but also a little bit of crazy, I would say too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I did really like when I watched your TED Talk on YouTube. I really liked the connection you made with how a lot of westernized Asians, the experience is always kind of indoctrinated this idea of fear of failure.
Mm.
And it's definitely something you could see with most kind of first generation immigrant families, immigrant kids, where it's like this idea of if you fail, that's the worst thing that could happen. You got to choose something safe. And then when it comes to getting into things like the arts or anything creative in that area, it's a lot of these stories about Asians who failed in the traditional sense, and then it's like suddenly, okay, now I failed. I've gotten rid of that, mentality. It's already happened. What do I have to lose? It's like you mentioned yourself. You got fired. I think I remember Simu Liu. He also said he got laid off from his accounting job, and that's what pushed him to take on this risk. And like for me as well, I've had a couple bad luck with a couple startups in the last few years, so that's also kind of pushed me. It's like, well, if I'm in this position looking for work, might as well try something I'm passionate about as well while I'm doing it. So I do like that connection you made when you did do that. When you did the TED Talk, I'm wondering then that moment when you got fired or that shift happened, were you already, I think you mentioned this a little bit, but were you already ready to go on to the next thing? Or were you like, okay, now I have to reassess and I think I'm going to do this more.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh, for sharing your experience as well. It just goes to show that so many people go through this kind of transition, or I guess like this phase in their lives. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when I started doing the media work and started to try to do creative projects while I was still working that day job, that job in that tech company, it was out of a necessity to create. It wasn't like this could be a career, right? It was like, okay, sweet. I just want to volunteer my time and really challenge myself at something that I feel like I might really enjoy, and I want to try to get better at it. And with that, I didn't think it could be like a viable career option, especially in Vancouver. I think it's really tough to be in media. My personal interest is not necessarily in news media. I think it's more so entertainment media. But then I realized later on, especially with starting Cold Tea Collective, that I'm a lot more connected to the work that I do, like the deeper work that I do, where I can have in-depth conversations like this, right? So in kind of that transition period, it wasn't like, okay, sweet, like it's time to do that thing now. There was still certainly a sense of like shame and failure. But the way that I dealt with it, just like being an extrovert, was actually to talk about it publicly and communicate about it. And with that, like just kind of took my time. And the 3 years following that, I took on a whole bunch of different jobs, a whole bunch of different careers. So everything for the last 3 years was just like all new. I even went into like teaching about like career education for high school and university students, because I just went through that myself. And so with that, at the end of the day, though, I think it still comes down to making sure that, like, at least for me, that what I was spending my time on was what would challenge me, but also would make me feel really fulfilled.
I love the one of the mantras of Cold Tea Collective is always for us, by us. And I take that mantra as almost like an authenticity call for the content that you push out, but also the team's content that they push out through the Cold Tea Collective mandate there. What does an authentic Asian experience mean for you in terms of being a younger Asian millennial in, say, Vancouver, but also in Canada in general?
Really good question. For me, it means understanding that you don't have to be 100% one thing or 100% this thing, or like, on either ends of the spectrum, right? So whether you feel like you're more Canadian, whatever that means now, right? Or more like, in my case, like I'm Chinese, right? Like Cantonese. I think for me to be authentic and being myself in the context of being an Asian millennial growing up in Canada and living in Canada, working in Canada, playing in Canada, is really just about understanding the intersectionality of the roles that I play in my community, whether that be the Cold Tea Collective community or even like in other communities that I'm a part of as well. And a lot of the times I feel like we try to shove ourselves into one bucket as opposed to recognizing like, no, like, okay, so for me, like I'm a second generation Chinese Canadian. I'm the oldest child of two. I identify as female, identify as a woman. I'm cis, like heterosexual. So with that, like there are a lot of different intersections with that as well. That plus just the things that you're really passionate about. So I hope that other fellow Asian Canadians can understand that they don't have to be like 100% one thing, that they can actually be a mix of all these different things.
Absolutely. I was looking at, I was watching your interview with Jake Choi while prepping for this interview and everything. He talks a lot about like, why can't Asians be superheroes and everything, of course. And of course we see that now with Simu and everything. But is one of your biggest goals with Cold Tea is to push the boundaries in what Asian could mean then?
I don't think that Cold Tea Collective wants to define what that is. I think our mandate is really to create a platform for people to share stories so that they themselves are inspired to arrive at that answer for themselves. So, for example, that's why we try to get stories from a number of different communities, try to get as many diverse experiences and perspectives as possible to just show that you can be all these different things. I mean, like for me, I think about role models or mentors. I don't know if I can fully say like I had this like one person or like a handful of people that I specifically looked up to, especially like not working in a very corporate like field previously when I worked in marketing. But it's kind of the idea of you can't be what you can't see, and mixed with the idea of be your own hero or be a hero for someone else. So that's kind of what Culty Collective does to serve our community, just really just opening people's minds to different opportunities as well as perspectives, and hopefully inspire them to figure that out for themselves.
Absolutely.
Interesting. I've gone through kind of the Culty Collective website and a lot of the different posts. So you do have a rather pretty eclectic contributors. I'm wondering what the process is for you to find these voices, or is it kind of like very open process that anybody who's like even listening to this podcast can just send you an email or just try to get in contact to get their voice out?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that. So two different things. So I think there's two different layers there. So Culty Collective is always open to pitches. So you can email us at info@cultycollective.com, or even on our website, there's specifically a page that's called Share Your Story. And it gives you specific instructions on how to pitch your story. So that can be either on an individual contributor basis. Sometimes we have volunteer opportunities opened for like staff writers and editors. And those folks are a little bit more like committed, and they contribute to us a little bit more regularly. And if you're part of the team, you have like regular meetings and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of funny because in the beginning, maybe when we had like 200 or 300 followers a couple of years ago, not that we have like a lot now, but we, if ever anyone would follow us, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. I'm gonna DM them like, thanks so much for the follow. Like, how did you find us? Because like I'm always really curious, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of literally like sliding into people's DMs, like that's how we got our editor-in-chief. Like he won't mind me telling you that, but yeah, I mean, anytime we can connect with people that have a story they want to share. We'll always do our best to try to support them on our platform. It doesn't always like work out, just depending on kind of our editorial guidelines and their idea, or maybe sometimes we'll refer them to another publication that might be more in line with what they want to share. But yeah, we're always open to pitches. Thanks for asking.
No worries. Yeah, no, because
Josh?
Well, we'll talk later. But
okay.
Actually, but it is nice to see, because I remember hearing about Culty Collective a couple of years ago, and then taking another look at it now, like seeing how much it's grown. I mean, there's always going to be that grind where you're trying something new, and then you want to somehow get people that's kind of outside of your immediate like friend group or like maybe Facebook network. It's like those are the people where you feel like maybe there's some momentum. You can reach an audience outside of your initial circle, initial bubble. So when you said it's like you're so excited about that 300th follower, like Lucas and I, exactly the same. It's like the second we get an additional subscriber, everything is so much. It's like, oh, we found somebody who we didn't necessarily was looking for, and now they found us somehow. That's like just a rush of endorphins. It's like, yeah,
it's a huge compliment, right? And that clearly speaks to the content you're creating and the community you're trying to build.
Yeah, how was that feeling in the first like new iterations of the Culty Collective, where it's like, you just got to keep focused, keep grinding it out? Was there anything like you did, or you or your team did, to keep focused?
I think for me, like just naturally, I'm very much a planner. So in the beginning, I actually I feel like I was holding back a lot because I was of the mindset of I got to make this perfect before we roll something out. But then it's kind of I had like a couple of friends that would remind me, like you actually have to shift your mindset from that, because the more you ship, the more frequently you ship, the more feedback you'll be able to get, right? And
Right.
so I think for us, or I guess my mentality now is more like, you got an idea, cool, let's make it happen. But if you have an idea, you have to be the one to make it come to life, kind of thing, right? Or
Oh
like
yeah.
help shape that somehow. Yeah, it's in the beginning, it's like there have been people that have been following us, like maybe they don't comment on things, but maybe sometimes they'll like something, or maybe they'll send us to DM, say like, I've been following you for a while, or people that recently joined our team, either as staff writers or editors. They said that they've been following us for like 2 years. I'm like, holy shit, like we were so different 2 years ago. So it's amazing, and to just to see the stories come to life is really cool. We actually just brought on board our two very first Toronto-based staff writers. So
Nice.
see some more stories from the six soon, I hope.
Nice. Yeah, it's also cool too. Like one of our mutual friends and everything, Angie, she also like heads up the book club that Cold Tea Collective hosts too. And it's like you guys are really branching out not only online but also in physical spaces too. Really
I mean, like pre-COVID times, we had a couple like book club meetups, but also, and we had like a couple of events last fall. We had a big one. It was a panel event called the Entrepreneur Series, and so we featured, we did an article, podcast, and like a panel event for 4 different Asian entrepreneurs, vastly different businesses, and like hoping to do more of those in the future. But for now, I guess it's mostly just online content, or like Instagram live chats. But it's hard sometimes, right? To be able to do that. I don't know, but that being said, like I feel like in being in quarantine, it's a lot easier to say yes to those things too. Like I've definitely popped on a lot more. Yeah, so it's cool to see how people have pivoted. But yeah, certainly I really miss people, to be honest with you. Hopefully we'll be able to have another event sometime soon. But until then, we're looking at ways on how to keep our community engaged and inspired.
That's the main thing. Like I remember I was watching a talk that you did with the BC Patient Safety and Quality Council. It was about a talk about mental health and within the finer details of an Asian perspective through mental health, and you greatly personified that idea through tea, basically, about how you awaken tea leaves and all that too. Why does this topic of mental health, especially in the Asian setting, mean so much to you? And what can we do to actually bring that topic up more?
It means a lot to me just because I personally have struggled with it, and in the last year, I've had like at least 2 really good friends struggle with anxiety and depression based on their just being really unhappy with their work situation and not doing work in line with their values. And that really resonated with me because it's exactly what I went through, right? So in any way that we can provide resources and support that, that's what we did, right? There's a couple I was in LA last year, and I've introduced myself and talked to people about like what Cold Tea Collective is, and they'd be like, "Oh, what does the name mean?" And so whenever anyone asks me that, I ask them first. Okay, I'm like, "Well, I'll answer you, but I want to know what you mean, or I want to know what you think the name means, right?" And one of the coolest responses that I ever got was someone saying that Cold Tea Collective. So if you think about it, hot tea is like the hottest gossip. But then cold tea is what people are not talking about. So in some ways, it's kind of related to that too, and how we want to bring a light to the things that are really hard for people to talk about. And if we can create content that helps people recognize that they're not alone, or empower them, or give them language to deal with their mental health challenges, then why not? Because certainly, we don't cover a lot of news specifically. And especially when it comes to like, let's just say, for example, anti-Asian like hate crimes, right? We don't cover that stuff too much just because I think a lot of other outlets can cover that. But what we want to do is be a light for our community and our audience. And so that's why we kind of steer away from that a little bit. Your second question was, sorry, can you remind what your second question, the second part of that question was?
What can we as Asians and also just in a furthermore community do to encourage more talk about mental health within the Asian context?
Yeah, I mean, well, firstly, I mean, it's kind of similar to what's happening around the discussion with like allyship right now, right? Within the Black community, Indigenous community, and other people of persons of color communities. I think it comes down to first taking a look at, if this is something you're passionate about or want to learn more about, look within yourself first. But certainly, even on Kulti Collective, we have a number of resources and articles that share not only personal stories, but actual like resources and links to different support networks and groups to be able to do that. I think what's been really interesting over the last year or two as well is the growth of like Facebook groups like Subtle Asian Mental Health, a lot of those subtle Asian like groups that really just make it an open platform for people to share their experiences, as well as like ask for help and ask questions. And so I think to, once again, to answer your question around like what can we do to get people talking about it is, think about, what does it mean to you? Look at the people in your community, within your social circles, your family, see how maybe, mental health has impacted, them on an individual or community basis, and, do the research. There's certainly a lot of resources out there, but I think for me personally, it's really important to have resources that are associated with, I guess, kind of the cultural experiences that we have. So that's going back to for us, by us,
There we are.
in making sure that you are referring to resources that actually apply to you on a cultural level as well, I think is important. And that's kind of the gap we're trying to fill with, in particular with that mental health content. But yeah, so just hopefully that helps a little bit. But at the end of the day, like talking about it is the not the first step, but it's a big step, depending on where you are in your journey.
Absolutely. I think in terms of living in a understanding, because the thought of being a person of color and a minority has been ingrained into my head ever since I was in kindergarten. It's a identity that's been impressed onto me since I was very young. And with living in that kind of identity, it's a constant negotiation within myself to accept who I am within this culture that sees me as something other than other too. Would you say mental health, in terms of how we view it today, is a more form of self-acceptance then?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question. So a form of self-acceptance, are you asking if acknowledging your mental health challenges is a form of self-acceptance, or are you saying that like
the first option?
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ask for help. You can't even like talk about it probably unless you have a problem, right? And if you yourself shared that you've kind of felt otherwise throughout your life, and it's something your identity is something that you were acutely aware of from a young age. It's understanding that that's okay. I think it's understanding that it doesn't make you any less of a person or less worthy of an opportunity or less anything. And accepting that you have maybe mental health challenges that you need to work through is definitely one of the first things. But I think you also, like, not just you specifically, but I mean, I think people also need to recognize that to overcome these challenges, it doesn't happen overnight, right? It comes through a lot of hard work, a lot of hard, deep self work. And sometimes you can't, you're not going to find those, I guess, solutions in the bottom of a bottle, right? Or you're not going to find it necessarily in a relationship. And for us growing up as Asian Canadians, there's when you also talk about self-acceptance, it's about accepting that everyone is flawed. Like, you are a flawed person, but then again, who's to say what's flawed and what's not, right? And that's kind of letting go of that idea of perfection is part of that journey as well.
Do you have anything to add on that, Josh?
Um, yeah, I think kind of when you guys are talking mental health, and like there's going to be a different relationship between the Asians who grew up in Western mindset versus the immigrant generation, immigrant parents, or even a generation up, and it's like the grandparents, right? There's going to be different levels of how you can communicate kind of those mental health issues. I'm wondering then, in terms of, because your main audience with Cold Tea Collective is going to be the millennial perspective. It's a very distinct, specific perspective. I'm wondering if you've gotten any like kind of feedback from like the parental perspective, or even potentially, who knows, like one level even further up. How is the more immigrant, parents' perspective come to kind of seeing these stories that you're putting out there? That's going to be rather um, kind of, I would imagine, aggressive to the minds of immigrant parents who don't usually talk about the things that you're trying to discuss on Cold Tea Collective.
What I mean, they're not really our audience, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. That's why I don't. We don't really get like feedback from the Asian immigrant parent generation. But that being said, of course, our core audience are the offspring of that generation, right? And so, a lot of times you'll get that like intergenerational that conflict. And I think where we try to fill in that gap for our generation, our core audience, is giving them tools to talk about it, hopefully, with their parents. But I think at the end of the day, it really is all about empathy. And so we actually have a post on our Instagram right now recently about how to talk to your parents about the Black Lives Matter movement. But I actually feel like some of the tips in that article, so it is an article as well, so it is on our website, actually relate to talking to your parents about mental health challenges as well, and mental health, and just not even just mental health, but just like any just generational differences in values or expectations. I think, as I mean, the only not only feedback, but an interesting piece of feedback that I've gotten from, I guess, my parents' generation was actually from like my dad. So he like reads like a lot of the stuff that we put out, and he's like in his 60s. He was born in Vancouver, but he was even more in between because like his parents were like were the first generation immigrants, right? So he said that reading some of our content, that it's like, wow, like, that's really interesting that the millennials are feeling this, because he actually felt that a generation previously. So that actually made me like realize that, hey, like sometimes we just don't know where our parents are in that journey as well. So just even opening up that conversation is important. And even like, for example, going off on a bit of a tangent now, but when I was planning my wedding last year, I got married early last year. Some of the conversations we were having around, expectations for the actual wedding, it brought up a lot of like, I guess, trauma and drama from when my parents got married. And so some of that got passed down. And then that was actually an opportunity to talk about, what does it mean to you for this to happen at the wedding? And why is that the case? And also like recognizing, like, wow, like my mom had like a hard time, like, because she was so different than like the upbringing of my dad, and like, and vice versa too. So, hearing that was really interesting, because it's not something that they ever talked about before, and not something that I really had any kind of like perspective on. So, I think, hopefully, our content proves or provides that opening line for a conversation.
Wow. Yeah, we always get so centered in our own experiences about how we're feeling and everything, but we don't, at least you brought to light with what you just said too. Our parents also have to grapple through maybe not the exact same scenarios that we're grappling with, but at least they had the same feelings that they had to go through.
Yeah.
The universal experience. And that was very profound.
It is. And that's the thing too, right? I think it's, it is generational, but I think it's about life stage too. Like in your like, we kind of play in the realm of like 25 to 35, because there are some very distinct things that happen when you're 25, 30, 35, like in your life, like regardless of your generation. And so I think that's kind of where we're able to get our, not inspiration, but I guess context from.
Right.
Like even, for example, like the movie Crazy Rich Asians, like, yeah, I was like, cool, like this was great. I connected to this part. But then like apparently the dumpling scene like really got my mom, like, because that was like something that she legit went through. So I thought that was really interesting to learn, because I just, once again, just didn't know, because I thought my mom was like, perfect, like could do no wrong kind of thing. And just to hear that, I was like, holy crap, like that's insane. So it just hits in a different way for different generations, I think.
Oh my God, that's so true. Ooh, oh my God.
That was quite the reaction there.
Yeah. It's just like, because now I realize, like, my dad was how old I am when he had me. And I can't imagine having kids right now, just because totally different mindset. But like when he had me, he was probably feeling unprepared too. He was feeling inadequate and everything too. And I think as I grow older, I think as you just said too, it gives more form of empathy to my parents and also to the generation that was there before my parents too. Because we're all trying to go through life and figure it out, but it's really odd when we just get so into ourselves.
It's true. Yeah. And it's okay, I said there maybe I was arguing against what a flaw was or not, but I think that is a flaw of our generation, and that we can tend to be very self-absorbed, and we tend to be very insular. I mean, we like to pretend that we're woke in a lot of cases. And I'm not saying that we're not, but yeah, empathy when it comes to our parents' generation, when we're struggling with what's going on internally for ourselves, is a challenge for us for sure.
Absolutely. Just to wrap it up, I'm gonna pass these next two questions. So when you first started out, of course, the term "making it" has changed and meandered and evolved. How has the term "making it" changed as you continue on this journey?
How is the term "making it" changed as I continue on this journey? As I evolve, things evolve. As I evolve, my vision evolves. I think it's interesting because only recently do I feel like, I think especially because the last few years, as I mentioned earlier, I did a lot of career pivots. I feel like I'm finally like I have some knowledge and some experience to like make certain decisions. I'm like semi qualified to do stuff now, or like, but I guess in terms of how that's evolved is, I mean, if you're not setting goals for different parts of your life, then you're staying the same, right? Even just like recognizing every day the strides that you're making, even as like tiny as they may seem to you, they're actually contributing to the bigger picture. I think that connects to the idea of building habits and building a lifestyle in a certain way. And for me, like yes, I'm focused on bigger picture stuff, but I'm also focused on just building those daily habits that help me be an effective person, so that when I do have these big goals, I will know how to tackle it like methodically, but also in a way that I feel fulfilled and proud and energized and inspired by the work that I do.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Especially with me, say, like, it's been about a year now since I've started doing comedy, and it's more about, from what I've learned through the comedic process, it is about like slowly increasing your skills or your comfort on stage, writing more material, that kind of element, and developing and being prepared for the moment when you get a break or like an opportunity comes up and you're ready for it. And like there's a element of, say, like a book that I'm reading right now from Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, where it's like big things can happen, huge trends can happen, but a lot of the times it starts from very small choices or very small actions, and then over time, for some reason, they build up, and then at one point they suddenly tip over. I'm wondering then, for like, say, Cold Tea Collective, and from when you started to where you are now, like, what do you feel like might have been that tipping point where you feel like all of your hard work over the years and suddenly now it feels like there's some traction gaining?
What was the tipping point, basically, right?
Kind of, yeah.
I know this sounds like bad to, maybe not bad, but being an extrovert, I certainly looked for external validation. But so I think there's two ways I can look at that. So the fact that we, on a quarterly basis can bring in new volunteers that want to get involved in us is huge to me, because it just shows that we are building a community that actually inspires people to want to, give their time to us. Yeah. And I think on the not flip side, but in addition to that, being approached by, brands or companies or other publishers to collaborate with them because they see value in our voices and the stories that we tell. Like, that is a huge validator, and like in my mind as well. So tipping point, like there certainly are a couple like situations where I feel like, okay, wow, like we're like really in this now. Yeah. And that's like, I guess as a business too, right? It's, we are at this time like volunteer run, but the tipping point for me is also, recognizing the significance of people wanting to give us money to share our stories. That's huge for me. That plus, as I mentioned, just kind of the more consistent, like regular intake of more people to build our community and our capacity to tell stories.
Nice.
Awesome. And just my last question that I usually ask every guest that we have here. We are living in exceptional times right now. In light of all that's happening in the world, what does being an artist mean to you?
Two things. And being an artist to me means being adaptable and resourceful. So, I mean, luckily for us, we are, an online publication. Certainly we've had to, postpone or cancel some events as well. But I mean, with that, there's creative problem solving and looking around us to see what resources we have available to us to make sure that we're still meeting our goals and serving the needs of our community.
Yep.
So I think for me, like that's what being a creative in this day and age means.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I agree. Yeah.
Cool. Should we go into the palette
cleanser? Yeah, the palette cleanser. Okay. All right. So usually at the end of the podcast, we have a palette cleanser. It's kind of a word association game. Lucas has 10 words. I have 10 words. And we'll just go ahead and read them. So whichever word you hear, first word that comes to your mind, just say it out loud. So clear your mind. I guess I'll go and then Lucas, you'll end it off.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. So first word. Mine's all clear. Family.
Food.
Nice. No, that is.
I mean, like dinner table. I imagined a dinner table and then the food on. Yeah.
I mean, that's how Asians show love. Is food.
Yeah,
food is
absolutely.
most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Okay. Next word.
In my mind.
Pineapple.
Juice. But a close second, kind of literally at the same time, was like cracked lips. Like I once ate too many pieces of pineapple. It actually cracked my lips, and it was really painful. The citrusy goodness turned into goodness.
Isn't there like an enzyme in pineapples that is like that really breaks stuff down? I don't know why that when you
it's very acidic.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, next word. Rain.
Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alone.
Gratitude. I was gonna say solitude, but then I realized that was the same thing as being alone. But like the feelings of gratitude. Not that I don't like people or anything like that, but yeah.
Everybody needs their alone time for sure.
Learning to be grateful for the time I have to myself and to be with myself, because as I mentioned, as an extrovert, it's really hard for me to do that. So being actually okay with that now is good.
Nice. Next word. Motivation.
Drizzy Drake. He's my motivation. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
No, he's my motivator. He's my motivator. Like in the sense of like, okay, so I know that that's part of the intro and it's maybe like a recurring theme throughout our conversation, but what he's done for Toronto and like Canada is what I want to do for Asian Canadians and Asian Americans. Just being proud to represent, being unabashedly like, I am Drake, and I'll be like, I'm Asian Canadian. I'm an Asian millennial, so Drake gives me motivation to do that. His lyrics do.
All of his lyrics started from the bottom. Now we're here. It's just
That's right.
workout tracks. Great. Okay, next word. Kumquat.
Okay, to be honest with you, I don't really know what a kumquat looks like.
I don't know either. It's like a fruit. I just know it's a fruit, and it's always a funny word.
I literally can't even imagine it. So I'm like, that's why I'm like, I don't really know if I have an association with that.
I always like that word because it's always like a curveball. It's always a curveball in my list. Okay, next word. Mountain.
The song Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Classic.
Classic. Okay, next word. Tightrope.
Sorry, what was that?
Tightrope.
Yeah, me falling, like walking on a tightrope and falling. That was like the first thing I visualized. Falling.
All right, next word. Satisfied.
Once again, food. Like just feeling really satisfied with the food.
And last word, ending.
Happy ending. Not in the creepy way, guys. Just having happy.
Yeah,
being happy
story.
with the result.
Kid story
exactly.
way.
They all lived happily ever after.
Nice. Great. Those are my 10.
All right. Okay. You feel cleansed. You feel. All right. Here we go. First word. Oh, this is such a gimme too. Ugh. Okay. Anyways, first word. Drake.
Sorry, Drake? Like, yeah, just like love. It's all love, baby.
Beautiful. Second word. Journey.
Path.
Dope. Third. T.O.
Okay, so I was caught between like a visual.
Yeah.
So it was like the visual of like I have an OVO hat with the owl on it.
Nice.
So that's more of a visual representation that's like popping into my head as opposed to a word.
Beautiful.
We got it. I got the image in my head. I got it.
I should have won that tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry. Corn?
Quarantine.
Oh, quarantine. Safety.
True. Teacher.
Inspiration.
Artist.
Creative.
Producer.
Me wearing my producer hat.
Nice.
Like someone like a someone that's just wearing a producer hat and just making sure everything's like making sense and working the way it's supposed to work.
It's one of the most stressful jobs. I don't know how you do it. Ugh.
No, you're doing it though. You're doing it.
Getting there. Vancouver.
Home.
Light.
Bright.
Last one, Natasha.
Me.
All right, great.
Give it up for Natasha.
At the end of the podcast, thank you for coming on.
You guys are amazing.
Where can people? Oh, sorry. What are your social media handles? Where can people find you?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find Cold Tea Collective on Instagram and Facebook at Cold Tea Collective, on Twitter at Cold Tea Media. We're also on LinkedIn. And so for myself personally, it's just at Natasha Jung on Instagram. And same thing, my name on LinkedIn. But yeah, other than that, just follow Cold Tea Collective, coldteacollective.com. I do write from time to time, not so much lately because we have an amazing team of writers and editors, but I do like to hop on there from time to time as well. We also, as you might know, we have a podcast and some videos as well, and you can also just go to the website and you'll find all the links for that too. So
amazing.
Great.
Josh, you want to go?
For me, yes. You could find me on all social media at Josh Yang Comedy. I do have my second podcast called Sleep with Josh. So check that to see what I'm reading, so to help you go to sleep. And I would say also, I put out a clip last week, since last week was the 1 year anniversary for me in comedy. I decided to actually release my very first set at Absolute Comedy. So it's been out for a week now, pretty much, but go check that out. It's on my Instagram, Facebook page, and stuff like that. Great.
It is an incredibly killer set, so please, everyone, look out for that set. You can find me at Lucas John Ng on Instagram and on Facebook. And you can find this podcast at HWMIY Podcast on Instagram. And subscribe and follow us, please, on YouTube, because subscriber, thank you in advance.
Really, thank you.
Awesome. See you all next week then. And give it up for Natasha again.
Hey.
Oh, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay. See you all later.